Ladies and gentlemen, friends of MIT, welcome to the sixth webinar of MIT Digital Transformation Series. For many companies, digital transformation is no easy task. Successful transformation often comes down to talents, and talents in four key areas that are interconnected, including technology, data, process, and organizational change. The important stuff from creating and communicating a compelling vision to craft a new plan, adjusting the plan as needed, and the detailed project implementation is all about people. Today, Dr. George Westman at MIT Sloan School of Management will speak to us about managing people side of the transformation during COVID-19, such as building digital ready culture, as well as the model of learning and development ideally suited for the current reality. So today, we will hear from two different groups at MIT. In the first hour, we will meet with 7 MIT startups with a range of digital technologies, including Internet of Things, digital twin, cloud service, data analytics, and AI. In the second hour, we will hear from Dr. George Westman on managing people side of digital transformation. I would like to welcome Rebecca Xiong, Program Director at MIT Startup Exchange. Rebecca will host the first session and discussions with these wonderful MIT startups. Over to you, Rebecca.
Great, thank you, David. Yes, I'm Rebecca Xiong, so I'm the Program Director at the MIT Startup Exchange. First of all, I just want to say thank you for joining us during these turbulent times, full of new challenges and opportunities. Today, you'll hear from 7 of our MIT startups that can hopefully address some of the digital transformation challenges. The talks today will be recorded. First, I tell you a bit about the MIT Startup Exchange and how it can help you connect to MIT startups in addition to the ones today. Then we'll go over today's agenda. I will now share my screen. Great. The MIT Startup Exchange was created 5 years ago based on input from ILP members to better connect MIT startups, 1,900 of them, with industry. These startups either licensed MIT technology or were founded by MIT faculty, staff, student, or alumni. We know these startups really well, and we also know our ILP members well. This enables us to make hundreds of effective introductions every year. It's really a great member benefit for you. Here are some of our success stories, where our ILP members have partnered up with MIT startups as early customers, strategic partners, or corporate venture investors. These members cover a wide variety of industries and come from all over the world. Now let's look at some of our startups. You see that they cover a number of trending industries, trending technologies. Most requested by our members is AI and data analytics, topic of today's event. There's also growing interest in healthcare, in sustainability, and in supply chain and logistics. Very appropriate for today's times. So, how can you best engage with our startups? One great way is through attending virtual events like today's conference. We'll be showcasing 7 startups, each of which will speak for a few minutes, so you can learn a bit about what they do. Over the course of the year, we put about 100 different startups on stage. It's really a great way to get to know some of our best startups. We also have our STEX25 Accelerator program, which highlights 25 of the most industry-ready startups that are really ready for significant growth. We will be unveiling the next batch of STEX25 on July 21st and 23rd, so please stay tuned. You can also post what we call an opportunity posting, which goes out to the 1,900 startups, who can then apply to work with you. You specify the topic of interest and a bit about the challenge that you have, and the startups can self-select based on these opportunities you posted. So that's how MIT Startup Exchange can help you connect with startups. Now on to today's program. You will be hearing from 7 of our startups on digital startups, spanning from sensor IoT to collecting data from these sensors and IoT, and using that data to do AI and predictive analytics to help make better decisions for you and for your customers. You'll also hear from a number of different applications, such as legacy applications, digital twins for those with heavy industrial assets, materials and chemicals, as well as logistics. Then at 10:35, we have the Q&A and discussion with these startups. Now, these startups will go one after the other with their 4-minute talk. At the bottom of the screen, you can see several buttons. Please use the Q&A button to ask questions of these startups and to vote on questions. Use the chat button only for technical issues, like if you have a problem with Zoom. You can also use this link, bit.ly/digital startups, big D, big S, 2020, to select startups you'd like to meet. Now, sometimes we've seen when a lot of people is hitting the URL at the same time, it might not work right away, but it should come back and work just fine for you to select startups you want to meet afterwards. So post your questions now as the startups talk, and we'll be addressing them during the Q&A. Now, let's get on with our startups. First up is Everactive.
Hi, my name is Ben Calhoun. I'm with Everactive, and I'll tell you about the company today. I got my master's and PhD in electrical engineering at MIT, working with then professor and not yet dean Anantha Chandrakasan. And now I'm a professor in electrical engineering at the University of Virginia, and also a co-founder and co-CTO at Everactive. So the problem that Everactive is trying to solve is one of remote monitoring. And I think with the current pandemic, it becomes even more clear the value of understanding what is happening with assets that you own where you're not able to be in person. With more and more of the workforce moved away from those assets, it becomes increasingly important to understand what's happening with them. And a few of the key aspects of this problem are on this slide. First of all, there are a lot of assets in an industrial context, which is where we're first applying our solutions. And that requires lots of sensors. Think of thousands of devices per site, or even tens of thousands. And from each one of those many devices, we would like to flow continuous data. It doesn't help much to fix an immediate problem with a piece of equipment if you don't know about it until the next day. So the key here is to get data from these assets that we care about in large volume, in a continuous fashion, and then move it to the people who need it. And existing solutions simply do not enable us to achieve this widespread remote monitoring. So that's where Everactive's technology comes in. Our differentiating technology is in ultra-low power integrated circuits, and we build systems on chip that allow us to have wireless sensors that are completely self-powered, meaning no batteries whatsoever. When you don't have batteries, you can deploy thousands of these sensor nodes on your thousands of assets in the environment. We also build the dense, low latency and long range wireless network that allows us to pull data from batteryless devices back into a cloud solution where we extract insights and provide actionable information directly to stakeholders. So this end-to-end full solution solves the problems that I talked about on the last slide. Everactive's first two products are shown on this slide. We developed a system that monitors steam traps in the steam distribution system. Steam traps are the valves that let the condensate get out of the system. And if those valves fail open, they dump steam down the drain and cost lots of money and energy. And if they fail closed, they back up condensate into the steam line and potentially bring down the process, which is costly in terms of downtime or can lead to safety problems. We also have a batteryless product that allows us to monitor electric motors and other rotating machinery, our machine health monitoring product. Everactive's customers are finding this really valuable. They currently have a maintenance problem and they don't want to use battery powered devices because that just replaces their existing maintenance problem with a different one. And they also observe that the savings they get from using these products literally cost them money not to do the monitoring. So we find that our customers get a 3x to 9x return on investment every year using the product. The product is built on a flexible platform. And you can look back at the recording later and see the many different kinds of harvesters and sensors that we can support on the platform beyond just our first two products. And this represents where the opportunity might be for your companies to partner with Everactive. We can certainly provide our existing solutions to you to use today, but there are also numerous other applications where batteryless sensing might apply. And so the opportunity to partner comes in co-developing with us, using our system for batteryless monitoring to co-develop for new applications to get access to data streams that you want to monitor. So I'll stop there and pass it to the next person. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christian, one of the co-founders of Zabbix, and it's already been a few years since my stint in Cambridge. I did a graduate fellows program between 2015 and 17 in the systems design, system architecture area. And we actually started Zabbix out of MIT, really with a goal of connecting assets, connecting systems to platforms at scale. And Ben gave a great example around that, which is you bring together millions of sensors, but in the end, you need to bring them into some of the core applications within the existing systems. So for our customers, the vision is really empowering them in their value chains by not promoting our vision, but actually enabling their vision of a connected world. We started that journey back in 2016, 2017, focusing on the automotive industry, so working around connected vehicles, winning customers like Daimler, BMW, and others. And the last year have really expanded that to also addressing manufacturing companies and other logistics companies and supporting them on their journey. The core problem that we at Zabbix are solving is essentially the complexity that comes with 28 billion connected sensors by the year of 2025, up from about 10 billion today. All of the platform initiatives and your various companies out there, as they start, they have a decision whether they make and build a platform or leverage solutions to build on top of that. That make decision comes at a cost of about 6.7 million because you need to get the team together and actually need some time to build it out versus solutions like ours, where we spent the last 4 years building that out and making that directly available to hopefully then drive up that last number, which is 26% of IoT projects being considered a success today. That is, I would say, a key number to increase. For us, what does Zabbix do? We essentially focus on three pieces: the integration, transformation, and distribution piece of data, which translates into an low-code tool set that our customers are using to enhance and scale their platform initiatives in order to connect to the different internal but also external sensors. So here we can see a couple of the data examples more from the automotive space, but you can easily transfer that to logistics and other areas around manufacturing, other areas of IoT, where at the center, data governance and secure data exchange is really key. Our product is a low-code integration platform, which basically helps connect to a slew of different interfaces and sort of different systems. So you can reuse the existing architecture that you've built in the enterprise, and at the same time, it bridges to that newer systems, and whether it's a digital twin application or newer sensor systems that you're bringing in. And with that, you get not only full support around scaling the platform, but also monetization and debugging capabilities. The two core use cases that I wanted to share with you today, one around connecting to vehicles. That's really, for us, been the initial focus area with our customers who have the challenge of bringing together data from different vehicles across a fleet. Let's see this from the perspective of a fleet operator. You want to get insights into how your fleet is performing. You need to bring that together and then distribute the data again into the different applications. Secondly, in the logistics area, a core focus on essentially building logistics platforms for better estimated time of arrival calculations. So my ask to you in the audience is, what does a smarter future look like for you? What do your platform initiatives look like? Happy to share some of our experience there with you and your teams, and curious to see if we can help accelerate that. Thank you. And now off to Jana from Neurologistics.
I'm Jana Eggers. I'm CEO of Neurologics, and we come out of the MIT's Brain and Cog Lab. So we're taking all of that sensor data you've been hearing about. How do you bring that together? How do your eyes and ears match up signals that come together to make better decisions? And I'll talk through a couple of use cases by getting my screen shared. And I believe you can see my screen now. How we use that for digital transformation is in two areas. If you think of digital transformation, often it's broken down into a couple of areas. One is engaging customers and one is empowering employees. Empower employees can be better decisions. It can be cost optimization, anything around that lines. Engaging customers can be personalization, better support, anything like that. And so we are typically doing personalization on the engaged customer side, and we're doing decision support on the empowering employees. And I'll give you an example of each. These are from two of our sample customers. One is Procter & Gamble on the left-hand side, and the other is the Department of Defense on the right-hand side. What P&G is looking to do is, how do they reach out and get their expertise of all their scientists standing in the aisle with their customers? As customers stand there and think, how do I make a decision about which product do I need? How can they, on their phone, get good advice from a picture that's taken, which is a sensor, and answering a few questions, which are their ears. So they've got their eyes and their ears together to help customers make a better decision at the point of sale. On the right-hand side, we've got lots of different sensor information coming in, as you can imagine, from the defense side. You have drone footage, you have satellite footage, you have call reports coming in. All of this information needs to come together, but how does it come together to form better decisions? So a lot of companies are really good at the streams individually of IoT. Now we're getting to the cognition of, how do we bring those together to make better decisions? We've been able to do it, which is one of the reasons why we were chosen for the STUX 25. We've been able, for P&G, for example, to double conversion by getting these answers out and closer to customers and doing launches within weeks. On the decision support side, we've been able to do 40% better cross-source resolution, as well as doing multi-systems integration. Our results differentiate us. That's first and foremost. Our explainability is key for AI. So why is the system saying this is the thing to do? And then lastly, you have to be able to integrate into the different systems. What's known on one should be known onto the other. So those are really the three key points of differentiation. We are looking for companies that are pursuing a build strategy. So we work with them to integrate across their systems. We are looking for people that are not just analyzing the data coming off of sensors, but really, how do I then put those into action? Another example of a couple of our customers are in process engineering and manufacturing, where they're taking all of the sensor data now, and how do I fit that now into the analysis that I was doing before, the autopilots that I had before, and make it so I can go ahead and take action with this. We call that an analysis advisor. And so we really do a lot of AI advisors so that you can go beyond those pilots and into production AI. I've mentioned already our consumer side, our defense side. We've also work in financial services, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, as well as, of course, industrial IoT. So thank you very much. I'm going to have to jump off the panel a little bit early to get to a conference in London, actually, which we can do these days. Please reach out and talk to me, Jana Eggers at neurologics.com. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ajanta. I am the founder and CEO of Ionate. Our connection with MIT is our initial founders and angel investors that came out of MIT Sloan's School of Management. What is the problem we're solving? So far you've heard really good stuff about sensors and AI and whatnot, but one of the challenge as an enterprise that you would face is, how do I modernize? How do I get some of these very interesting technology that's out there to help my enterprise and be the market leader? So unless you modernize your legacy application, this is going to be a difficult task. So one of the things that we are showing here on the right side, loss of market share. It's an example from global banks, which you would see the purple line here. It's a digital bank growing year over year in 2017 with a very 1% market share to 20% market share in 2019. And the other ones that you see here, these are giants, large global banks. But if they don't do something about their legacy systems and modernize their application, this is going to be a problem. Now, sounds simple, but the challenges you would face with some of these, we'll take an example of, let's say you're running mainframe or AS400, or you have very older Windows applications. Now, some of you heard during COVID with the stimulus package that the government offered, it took us a long time to get those. Why? Because the underlying system is COBOL. Now, no offense, but the developers of COBOL, it's an aging community, and it's difficult to get to the market for developers who would or could write COBOL. Most of the schools, they don't teach that. Now, on the other hand, most of the developers that you see today, they are first-class developers, in modern languages. So it's left hand and the right hand, they don't talk to each other. So there are lots of challenges, that of talent being one of them. The cost of licensing and renewal is second. And as you can see, the market share, you would continue to lose that. Now, how can you get around that problem? Traditionally, and Gartner suggested 7 different ways or 7 steps to modernize your legacy application, which you can see on the left side. And these are really the right steps to do. But your options, the traditional option to that is either you build it in-house or you hire somebody from outside. Either way, these are very, very manual, understanding your business process. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do, modernizing your application, but your business process may or may not change. That's been built in last 30 years or more. So what we have built, an AI-based artificial intelligence and machine learning combined, we first discover and analyze the business processes that you're running, combined with the source code that you have, and what is the problem you're solving. So we have tried to understand that. And with that, we come back with a new architecture, which is cloud-native microservices based. And that gives us a training model to convert from your legacy applications to your modern runtime, modern infrastructure, so that you can leverage all of the good stuff that you've been hearing so far, and then down the presentation, you'll hear some more. Now, once the model is trained, then we automate the whole conversion. We also help with the deployment, of course. Finally, we do with the training and knowledge transfer. Now, on the left side, what is the traditional way? It's typically 2 to 5 years. Now, even after, let's say it takes 2 years or 5 years, after 5 years, you'll still be legacy, because by the time you catch up, you're still running some older applications that, you're not on the modern technology stack. We do all of these within a time frame of 10 to 15 weeks on an average. Of course, it could, vary here and there. So with that, I want to show you a few other cases, or we'll show one use case, but what are the different technologies we address on this? We can do almost all of the mainframe and AS400 COBOL running on mainframe, or Fujitsu .NET COBOL to Java Spring Boot or .NET Core microservices. We can convert, Visual Basic or likes of application running on Windows or Windows 7 that are no longer supported. That's a huge problem with compliance and support. All of these can be converted into modern runtime, whether it's in Java or .NET Core, running in the front end with Angular or React, whatever be the case. We can also do things like IBM BPM and SAP, Oracle Forms, of those nature. With that, let's take a particular use case. Not to mention any bank per se, but this is very common in majority of the banks that we have looked at. This is also common in the insurance field or manufacturing or whatnot. So this particular example, what's happening here, transactions are coming in daily, and these transactions must be processed in a batch, what is known as a batch mode. Now, first, you have to sort it, and then you apply different rules for your bank. Let's say it's a credit card transaction or checking count or whatnot. Once all of these rules are applied, the data is stored in a sequential file, vSAMs, DB2, and whatnot. This is how mainframes or any other legacy will work. What do we do here?
Ajanta, maybe we can move on a little faster to make sure we have room for the other startups.
Sure, absolutely. So what we do here is we take your existing processes, we convert into Spark-enabled sorting, we take your code that's converted into Java-based here, running in a Storm, and your data is also converted from your legacy to the modern ones. Why is this important in a time of COVID? Not only will modernize with the time from 10 to 15 weeks, this essentially reduces your cost up to 90% and your performance gain of 5 to 10. Together, we're stronger in this with partners and customers we have worldwide, as you can see on the right side. And feel free to contact me after this. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Knezovic. I'm CTO and co-founder of Excellus. Excellus is a simulation technology company that's a spin-off from MIT Mechanical Engineering Department. And what we do is we provide what we call physics-based digital twins of critical assets. And by digital twin, we mean a digital model, a computational model of a critical asset that is kept in sync with the asset over its operational lifetime. And by physics-based digital twin, we mean a digital twin that you can actually be analyzed, simulated, data from the asset can be simulated so you understand the stresses, the structural integrity, the performance, the operational options for your asset from the point of view of actual physics. So with that, let me get into the problem that we're solving. So the problem at its core is that physics-based digital twins are an appealing idea that people have been interested in for a long time, but traditional technology for physics-based analysis has not been up to the task of providing what we would consider a digital twin, where a digital twin requires full asset modeling and fast response. Full asset modeling, you want your entire asset to be modeled in full detail so that all of your inspection data, all your sensor measurements are represented accurately in your digital twin. And you want fast response so that the digital twin can give feedback to you quickly enough to enable operational decisions to be improved and modified based on the analysis coming from the physics-based digital twin. So traditional simulation technology is very computationally intensive. Anyone who's run something like finite element analysis would know that it doesn't scale, it hits a computational brick wall, and you just can't run this kind of large-scale fast analysis with conventional methods. So the innovation at Excellus is we provide a new type of simulation technology that was developed at MIT over a period of 15 years with 150 man-years of work behind it, a lot of academic publications and patents behind it. And what that enables is a massive acceleration and scale up of what you can do with simulation. So you can enable these very large scale assets to be modeled in full detail and modeled in seconds rather than hours or days. You can run this type of analysis in seconds through our unique technology for physics-based digital twins. You can see some examples of assets in the background: wind turbines, pressure vessels, rotating machinery, offshore platforms. I'll show an aircraft example in a second. And you can see in the background, we've got circles around parts of these assets, because with the traditional workflow, you can only model small parts of an asset in detail. Whereas with Excellus's approach, you can see the solution is that Excellus's approach enables entire assets to be modeled in full detail and very quickly, so that it provides the speed and predictive power to support operational decisions, so that any data you have about your asset over its lifetime, whether you're getting data every second from sensors or every week from inspections or whatever it might be, that data can be fed into the digital twin, which is residing on the cloud and is sensor connected in whatever way is needed for that asset. Any data that comes in is analyzed and reporting is generated so the operator knows that their asset is safe. So this is complementary to sensor technology, IoT technology. We provide the physics-based interpretation layer for all of that. So let me get on to a specific example to illustrate a bit more clearly, I would say. This is an example we're doing actually with a group at MIT and other groups. You can see on the right there, Aurora is part of this, which is part of Boeing, but also Aeroastro at MIT and University of Texas, Austin. And in this case, the project involved putting sensors on a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. So you can see the sensors on the actual UAV. We set up a physics-based digital twin using Excellus's technology. So you've got your physical asset, you've got your sensors giving very fast sensor data about the asset. And the idea here is to have a self-aware unmanned aerial vehicle, so that the sensor data comes into the digital twin, and the digital twin will automatically inform the asset about how it should modify its operations. So you can see that on this next slide, where we see this UAV digital twin in action. What's happening here is you see there's damage accumulating in the aircraft wing, and you can see what's happening on the left is you've got two different flight paths programmed into the UAV. You've got an aggressive flight path in orange and a conservative flight path in blue, in dash blue. And what you see is that the digital twin is receiving sensor data, and at some point concludes that it's in a state where there's too much damage and it needs to switch to the conservative flight path. So you see that here, the UAV is flying on the aggressive flight path, and then at some point it concludes there's too much damage and it switches to a different flight path. So you see this self-aware UAV, it's actually changing its behavior based on the sensor data feeding into the digital twin, informing smarter decisions and automation ultimately, or different use cases use this technology different. So with that, I'll just move to the final slide, which is the ask, which is any company. You can see types of companies we work with below, energy industry, renewables, and heavy industry of all kinds, port infrastructure, mining machinery, offshore structures, aerospace, defense, etc. All these industries are heavy users of simulation technology, and we have a unique way to accelerate simulation technology and connect it to sensor technology and inspection data. And so anyone who's interested in deploying this kind of digital twin to make their assets self-aware, and obviously that's increasingly important in time of COVID, where you need to monitor these systems remotely. So yeah, with that, I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jill Becker, CEO of Kebatik. This is my second company out of Harvard Chemistry. Yes, please don't hold it against me that I went down the street from MIT. MIT did offer me a full ride for grad school as well, but I had chosen Harvard. I do things at MIT. I mentor at the Martin Trust Center, and I've been things like a judge for the 100K contest. Chemical companies, they use 18th century methods, and they spend more than $150 billion a year on R&D in order to try to provide innovation to deliver new chemicals and materials to end product manufacturers. But the end product manufacturers like OEMs, car industry, whatever you want, they have a huge need for new materials. So discovery is too slow, and it takes 10 to 15 years to really get a new chemical or material into a product. So the market really was ready for a new player like us, where we can increase the rate of discovery at a reduced cost with our 21st century methods. We reinvented how to invent. We've taken the serendipity out of science, and we've disrupted the scientific method with our AI and robotics. We do a lot of material informatics solutions, but we also have lab automations. We call that the self-driving lab. As a use case, I will show here, we work with NIH NCATs remotely. So you can see on the right, their large robotic arm that does enzyme assay testing for viruses. And their brute force design of experiments takes them 49 hours. We managed remotely to reduce that down to 9 hours. And yes, they're doing nothing but COVID testing, and this gave them 40 more hours to save lives. At the same time, we also managed to reduce the amount of enzyme that they needed by a factor of 5. What we're looking for is partners, and there's a lot of different things that we can do with our partners. We have a suite of digital tools. We can do things like high throughput computational screening of molecular properties. What does that mean for a chemical company? Well, you might want to make a new lubricant and you've dreamt up 2,300 lubricants, but it would take you years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it. We can tell you which the top candidates that have the requirements, the optimum properties that you would like. We can also do machine learning for such properties. And we just saw, we did a wonderful process optimization. We also built we call it reaction sage. So it predicts what the best synthetic route should be, both forwards and backwards. Backwards is called retrosynthesis, like how do you make it? And best is often defined lowest cost, least number of steps, purity, and of course, yield. I've demonstrated also the automation control of lab equipment. And then we also do something that we call complete solutions. What a complete solution is, we do lead candidate discovery with or without the customer data. We have the capacity to create our own data, And that's very important because a lot of the data that exists out there is biased. And what we want, we call our AI software our AI brain, and we want to have the most powerful AI brain in all of chemical space. We can repurpose existing materials. One of the things we recently did for ourselves is we uploaded more than 7 million commercially available chemicals and then searched them for a new use case IP and then patented that use case IP. But the way our AI software works, it then said, oh, you like that one? Well, here is a whole library of candidates of chemicals that have never been made, but this is how you make them, and they have the properties that you're interested in, and we patent those as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jean-Paul Cousoulon. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Foxtrot today. 5 years ago, my Doug and Patrick Cool ran from MIT to digitize the last mile delivery and turn logistics into a business enabler. After 5 years, today, Foxtrot powers more than 7 million deliveries per month around the world to 10% of the retail outlets for large CPG and e-commerce platforms. Why such a success? I think because Foxtrot is addressing an interesting, quite complex, and pretty common problem to many companies, which is the last mile delivery. The last mile is what is the last piece between your product and your customers, and customers are more and more sensible. We all went through the pandemic period, and were we looking really for a brand when we were shopping online, or for a product that we could have within 1 to 2 days in our home? And to make that happen, it's pretty complex. Only 7% of the companies in the world are using digital data and machine learning to optimize this last piece of logistics. The legacy system using very static data, which are really not in sync with the reality in the field. And those systems are usually very tactical, trying to optimize the miles you drive versus enabling a more strategic approach and make logistics a differentiator. So Foxtrot had the vision to create a single real-time automated digital hub through which all the logistic players will interact. So in the middle, you have the Foxtrot platform, where we data model everything that can happen during a delivery. We collect massive real-time data, we apply machine learning to those data, and automate. And it behaves like an internet of deliveries, not an internet of things, but internet of deliveries that connect different assets. On the left, you have all your legacy system with your road planning system, which in the morning gives us here are all the customers you have to deliver, take care of it. Then we have to interact with all the data, the traffic we find in the field, and we have all the trucks and drivers with which we're going to interact constantly during the day to tell them where to go next. And on the right side, you have all the users, the retailers, the end customers who wants to know where are their deliveries. They may want to update their delivery. They may want to have a same-day delivery for which they are ready to pay for more. So the challenge with that is really to have very important data. I don't have much time to go through that, but just a customer is where is his location, when can you serve it, and how long it takes to serve that. I can tell you between what our customers say us at the beginning and after a couple of weeks learning from their feed, those are really different. And when you think that you can deliver a customer between 6 and 12, for example, in fact, he wants to be delivered between 9:30 and 10:15 because this is when he's available to receive your goods, to pay you, and not at a different time. So when you have a large number of trucks on the road, you can imagine the sources of efficiency. So what are the main benefits that our customers and those 7 million deliveries that today we power every month? For sure, the first type is improving the efficiency. And you can see on the bottom left corner, the more the driver follow the sequence we propose them, the less mile they drive, and less time they spend in their truck. There are many benefits. For the end customers, they know when the order is going to show up, they are ready to receive, they have the money to pay you. For the logistic, they have much higher first attempt delivery and don't return goods to the warehouse. And you have all the stakeholders in your company, like the merchandiser, for example, who know when their customers are delivered so that they show up and do a good service just on time. So what are we looking as Foxtrot after those 5 years? We are looking for manufacturers, CPG, retailers, large service company, or third-party logistics who are interested by two business cases. Either they have a fleet of trucks and they want to optimize their last mile delivery, and we have a perfect solution for that. But we also look for companies who want to innovate and who want to take advantage of that to make logistics a differentiator, like open a B2C channel, like offer same-day deliveries. So they can take advantage of the 5 years development we've done, and we can innovate on top of it with specific application very rapidly in a very innovative way to do that. If you have any interest into that, you have my contact information at jean-paul@foxtrotsystem.com. Thank you very much, and I turn it back to Rebecca.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Great. Thank you to all the startups for very interesting, engaging talks. Now it comes the fun part of the event. We have the panel discussion, and we also have actually a couple of poll questions for you. If we can turn on the first poll asking about digital transformation in terms of long-term and short-term focus. Can we turn on that poll right now? Meanwhile, I'm going to start with a few questions, some of which have been answered in the Q&A, but might be worth going through still so that everyone gets to hear about them. Okay, great. Thank you. The poll is live, so you can take a look at that. We would like to know your company's focus on digital transformation, whether it be focused on short term, showing results quickly, or more longer term, the bigger impact overall, or maybe both. If you could take a second to answer that, that'd be great. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask some of the more specific questions. I think there was some question for Ben on ever-active sensors. How do we deal with actually getting that power if it's not through battery?
Yeah, so the self-powered sensors still have to have power from somewhere. It's a great question. And we achieve that power by harvesting energy from the environment of the sensor. And if you go back and look at the recording later on the platform slide, we list out all of the different options that the platform supports. But briefly, it's outdoor power, outdoor solar, which is easy, indoor light, a lot harder, thermal gradients, vibration, electromagnetic fields, or RF powering. And it harvests that power, stores it locally in a capacitor, and then regulates it and supplies it to the rest of the sensor node.
And you've also made your sensor overall low power. It doesn't require a lot of power on top of that, right? Great. Some questions we have for some of the other startups are for Ionate in terms of, are you replacing legacy systems or making them better? And do you require the source code or not?
Yes, thank you, Rebecca, for the question. We do replace the legacy system into modern cloud-native microservices. We retain the business processes that you have on your legacy system. So think of it as a brand new system, but it works exactly the same way that it was working before. To the second part of the question, we do require the source code if possible. If you don't have, though, we do have a way to get around that problem. It depends on the particular subsystem you have, but we can convert without the source code as well.
Excellent. So if I don't know if everyone got a chance to see the poll result in terms of short-term versus long-term focus. What's interesting is most people say they're looking at both of these projects. I believe that's also what we saw earlier in the digital transformation series in terms of asking people, are you focusing on operational efficiency, or are you focusing on how to find new business offerings? So I think companies are really trying to do a lot of different things. So how do you guys think about helping companies, whether it be with short-term focus, getting results quickly, which I think some of the startups here speak to, versus more the longer-term focus? And really, startups, feel free to speak up, or Jenna.
Yep. I'm happy to jump in. So with our customers, it's generally we're doing a short term to long term. So we start often with a project that can be delivered within, it depends on how big the enterprise is, but 3 to 6 months, and show an in production by that time. And then, but that generally has a 3 to 5 year vision. So I'd say it really is both, and it's the same project looking at it both at different scales.
Can you give an example of that? Whether it be using the PNG example or using, maybe you mentioned a process engineering example.
Those are two great examples, Rebecca, because P&G was on that short-term side. So they had a new launch that they wanted to coordinate the Skin Advisor launch with. So it's called Olay Skin Advisor, was our first work with them 5 years ago. And that was something that we delivered in a time span of about 6 weeks. So it was even shorter than the 3 months. So, but that was because they had a time frame. Most of our customers that are doing something like that really are more like a 3-month time frame. Whereas if you talk about the process engineering, and that's in oil and gas and construction materials, those have been 6 to 9 month projects to get to the first. So one of our customers, for example, has 400 plants. To get even to the first plant was 6 months. But they're going from having about 7 points of measurement to having around 700. So it's a 100-fold increase. And with the sensors that they're adding in from, they were doing manual sampling before. And so you're looking at a really big, factor of 2 change in the number of data points that you're taking into account for these decisions. So it's understandable that it takes something like a 9 months to get out there.
Very good. Yes, Ajanta.
Yeah, I would agree with Jana. A few points there. I mean, especially during time of COVID. As a business, small, medium, large, if you can't survive this time, I mean, you're dead, right? So there's nothing after that. So I think the strategy has to be, you have to survive this downturn. At the same time, you have to have a long-term vision. That's what we kind of bring to the table too. Not only we will ensure that you survive the COVID downturn, but also the long-term strategy. How can you compress that into a couple of months? Like Jana, you said exactly the same way. If a project goes for years and years, then you really don't gain the benefit out of it, and your margins are lower. Your total cost of production or operation is really high. So one of the key things to think about as enterprises, as good or bad for during these times, how can you reduce those costs, and how can you come out stronger beyond COVID?
And maybe to add one perspective to that, which I think in a sense is reflected with a lot of startups here, like we've all spent years building out a technology, which obviously you can, in your own company, make a choice of building on your own to a certain extent. And probably from a talent perspective, it's the best time now to do that. The problem is that most companies will probably not have sort of the open budgets to build up a team of, let's say, 10 AI experts and machine learning experts, or even site reliability engineers who really know how to run scalable systems. And for us, that's actually a big opportunity that we've been seeing, especially in the last few months, where like more and more pressure is coming onto teams to deliver and not take sort of that 18 to 24 months time frame to actually start building up their MVP, but really bringing something out with almost like an acceleration of whether it's our technologies or one of the other companies here to accelerate that process. And acceleration, I think Jill had that example from the chemical space around saving companies 40 hours of time there on a single testing. Acceleration basically gives you the flexibility to test more and to gather more data and validate your approach. And I think that's what's, from the different perspectives that we've shared today, that's what all of our value proposition boils down to.
Jean-Paul, did you have a hand up earlier?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that in 6 weeks, at least for us, a customer, after 6 weeks collecting data, we have enough time just to start already giving back some value to their fleet and improving their routes. So it's really, as always say, it's really plug and play.
Mm-hmm. And David?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what everybody else said, we always focus on time to value. In our product, we deliver digital twins of assets. And once the digital twin is delivered, it's this model of the asset and it starts to deliver value. And then the idea is that continues to deliver value over the remaining lifetime of the asset, which could be years or decades. So, that's very much a short term, get it up, get it running, get insights from it, and then keep it running over the remaining lifetime of the asset.
Great. Joe, before I get to you, I just want to mention we do have the poll. Folks asking about the result of the poll in terms of how has your budget changed during this COVID time. I think many of you speak to how to there's a greater pressure now to show results quickly in this changing COVID-19 environment. So we do see the most popular answer is the budget decreased a bit, but not that much higher than the ones that said increase and stayed the same. So it seems like budget's a bit all over the place. I don't know if that's your experience as well in terms of what you're seeing. I know one of the things corporates have always told me that what they love to hear about from startups is how they move quickly to address to changing, very agilely address the changing environment. Yeah, Jill, you can speak, or if otherwise want to pipe in.
Sure. For us, it's both short-term and long-term. So we start, of course, with the chemical or material, and we built a lot of tech that we can predict which ones we should be making like this. Then we actually have robots that make it, another robotic suite that tests it, and you're left with an actual chemical to prototype. Then we have to move on to, let's say we're working on a battery, like we're doing with one customer. We have to work on the formulation, and we use AI there too. And then it becomes a battery, so an actual device, and we use the AI there too. So it's we use the AI along the whole chain. So, and all that information is fed back because you don't want to invent chemicals just for the sake of inventing chemicals. You want this chemical to have a certain property, whether that's a better electrochromic for smart window applications or a pesticide of lower fungal resistance. That needs to be baked in ahead of time. So it's both short and long term.
Great.
I think you're muted.
Yes. I want to make sure we get everyone get a chance to talk, but also that I want to mention, if you want to follow up with the startups, right? We do have a link where you can go in to pick the startups you want to follow up with. It's bit.ly/digital startups 2020. You can select all the startups here that you're interested in following up, and as well as actually some startups you saw earlier in the series from using that link. Great. All right. So let's see. Going back to some of the questions people have asked specifically, there's a lot of questions people have about how you're differentiating from this company or how you're differentiating from this other company. I guess one thing people are trying to say is there's a lot of startups out there also to help with digital transformation. Can you tell us a bit about how you're different so it can help the corporates clarify on their mind the differentiation?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that first, Christian, from Zabbix. One of the challenges in the software space is that products don't necessarily get better as they get older, in that sense, because they reach a point of where they essentially dive themselves into a level of complexity that suddenly creates much more challenges or is much more difficult for the actual users to deal with. I think one of the question was around how does Zabbix compare to ThingWorx. ThingWorx is a great company. They started building their technology at a time when the underlying technology for us wasn't even around. So we built our stack about 10 years after they started off with theirs, and it just opens a new box of opportunities, both from the perspective of how do you bring that to users in terms of developer experience, in terms of usability, but also in terms of technical flexibility to actually connect, in that sense, real-time data with more legacy systems that are out there.
And then John Paul.
Sorry, did you pick me first?
Yes.
Okay. So there really isn't a company like us out there in materials and chemicals. So if you look at robotic platforms and AI platforms and those that have combined it, it's in the pharma space. And we do plan on spinning out, I've named it Foundation Pharma, separate CEO, separate fundraise in 2022 timeframe, maybe 2021, that uses all the tools that we have. So we're a platform company. Yes, we have very strong material informatics. So the only company out there really is Citrine Informatics, but we look more to Ginkgo and Zymergen as the platform company for synthetic biology. That's what we want to be in chemistry and materials. So we don't have any competitors that are like us, but let's say our number one competition is for our reaction route predictor. There we have IBM Reaction, Syntheta, Reaxis, SciFinder, but that's only one module of about a dozen modules that we've built. So no one else has had this bright idea of trying to digitalize everything about the chemical lab and at the same time reduce costs, reduce the amount of employees you need, and have an automated lab. And as such, we actually just built our very first self-driving lab.
Great. Jean-Paul?
I think there are two things that differentiate us. It's an obsessive attitude since the beginning about the quality of the data on which we can build up very rapidly. And second, when we speak with logistic companies, they say, okay, we need smart technology, but it is your problem. For us, it's a change management problem. So they like that we spend also a lot of time to have people who are just able to speak to the end user and enable this transformation up to speaking their language in all the countries we are deploying.
Great. All right, David and Ajanta, we have 2 minutes, so keep your answers concise.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in terms of differentiation, so the term digital twin, which is what I introduced Excellus as dealing with, means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So one axis on which we differentiate is the fact that we're dealing with these physics-based digital twins. So it's not just a picture of your asset as it is today. It's actually simulating it and giving you, insights into its actual performance from the point of view of responses to loading and temperature and corrosion, all these kinds of things. And then the other side, which I think I touched on in the talk, is we differentiate just in terms of the technology. We have patented technology out of MIT that gives us the ability to scale and the speed that you need for this kind of physics-based digital twin.
Hey, Rebecca, quickly to pitch in here. We value slightly differently. We do compete. We have lots of competition from technology companies to consulting companies, but we actually believe more in partnership. Today, we see what we can do. There's very few companies out there, but part of the problem is we're small, we're nimble. To get into market takes longer time. So we do partner with majority of these companies, which initially thought we're competing with them, but we're together stronger. I mean, that's our message these days. And we're getting strong feedback from that we partner with companies which we initially thought is a competition, but we partner with them. End of the day, customer is God, and we try to help them.
Great. Thank you so much, all the startups. I hope everyone found it very interesting and engaging to hear the startups and what they're doing to ensure digital transformation works despite what's going on all around us. Or maybe these are providing even more opportunities for us to quickly innovate. I also want to mention the URL. It's in the chat to follow up with these startups. So bit.ly/digital startups, big D, big S 2020. And now I want to turn over to David to introduce our faculty speaker.
Thank you, Rebecca, for introducing us to these wonderful startups.